Hello, everyone. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce you to Sabela Melchor Couto. She's a very frequent collaborator in this master's. She's been here in previous editions, and she always has wonderful ideas to share with us. So she is currently a teacher in Escola Oficial Idiomas in Vigo. And she has experience also teaching in the British higher education sector, having worked as a senior lecturer at University of Roehampton in London, and as a lecturer also in Edinburgh. She has participated in a number of projects, European projects, etc. The most recent ones being Tecola and Tila on virtual exchange. Sabela, I'm going to start sharing your screens, and then your slides. Let's go to number 1. And now, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thanks so much for me. It's such a great pleasure to be able to join you in this master's course. It's really an inspiration to be able to speak to students who are going to become teachers and to be able to chip in a little bit in their training and maybe share ideas that may inspire them in their future career as teachers. So thank you so much for counting on me one more year, and I hope many more to come, because really it is a really enriching experience for me as well. Thank you, Anna. Okay, so before I start, thank you for switching on your camera. Carlos, hello. I don't know if anybody else, hello, if anybody else would be brave enough to share their cameras with us, that'd be lovely. I was going to tell you that it's been a few years since, thank you, Julia. It's been a few years since I haven't taught online, since the pandemic, actually. And you've always been on the other side, I guess. But when you're on this side as the teacher, it looks that you are like you're teaching, that you're talking into the void, that you're talking to a wall. Hi, Alexandre. Thank you so much for switching on your camera.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, I was going to say that this remind me of the pandemic when I used to ask my students also to switch on the cameras. And we also had the pajamas challenge. So we would see how many students were still wearing their pajamas, and we would dare them to stand up and show their pajamas. It was like a competition to see which one had the nicest one.
That's a good one, actually. That's a good one to try and engage people to switch on their cameras. So thank you so much to those who have done it. This actually ties in perfectly with something that I always like to say when I talk about teaching. I like to say that we are like DJs, because you have to feel the room. You have to feel the mood and see you've got your lesson plan that you've spent so long on preparing. But then on the other side, you've got the reality in front of you. And perhaps it's, I don't know, a horrible winter afternoon. Everybody's tired. We're getting to December. And whatever it is that you have prepared for your students, is not going to work. So you have to feel the room and adjust like a DJ would, and bring something out of your magic bag that will bring your students back to you, and that will create the environment that you need for them to learn. So for me, if I want to be able to DJ in this session, I need to see as many of you as possible, to kind of read your faces and see if you think that this is so boring, or this is not new, or I'm wasting my time here, So thank you to those of you who have switched on your cameras, and those who may decide to do so in the course of the presentation. Okay, so before I get started, I would like to just say one word of, just to express my heartfelt sympathies for everything, the tragedy that has just happened in your region. The whole world has been looking at you guys. We in Galicia, of course, have felt every step of what you've gone through, and we really hope that you can go back to normal as soon as possible, and that whatever help is needed will get to you. Okay, so I just wanted to start by saying that. Okay, so we have a first slide here. Just very quickly, this is me, right? Some of you in the survey that you completed before this session, some of you asked, it would be interesting to know how she ended up becoming Escola Oficial de Idiomas teacher. And as you can see, or as you can guess from that infographic, if you know, it's not been a straight line for me. I've gone around the block a couple of times, and then I've kind of ended up in the back to square one. So I went from Galicia to Scotland. There I was teaching a little bit in primary school, a bit in secondary school. And then I moved to university, which is where I did most of my teaching, really, for the past 15, 20 years almost. Then I moved down back to London in the south of England. And a few years ago, 5 years ago, I moved back to Spain. And this is where I became Escuela Oficial de Idiomas teacher. My idea was to keep teaching at university, but I found that the university that I was teaching at in the UK had nothing to do with university here, and that I felt more drawn towards general adult education in Escuelas de Idiomas. And I can say, I think that I found my spot, that it's got everything I like about the teaching job. Although, having said that, I have enjoyed teaching in every educational stage. If it's vocational for you, I think that you will enjoy it. But you need to look at your strengths also and your talents. For example, in my case, just because of my personality, I don't enjoy all the discipline issues that come up in secondary school or perhaps in primary school. I enjoy the creative side of our job. I enjoy helping students get to their final objective. And perhaps this is a bit diluted, you know, in secondary and primary, but that's my take on it. And because discipline is not one of my strengths and not something I enjoy the most of my job, then I steer towards adult education, because in the adult classroom, there are no discipline problems, so I can focus on what I'm doing. So this is a briefly, in a nutshell, an explanation of why I chose to be a Escola Idiomas teacher. Okay, so Anna, she's going to be my co-DJ today. So maybe we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this is what we are going to talk about today. On the basis of your answers, okay, to my questions. So as you can see, I ask you what you'd like to hear about. Most of you said tips about how to go on preparing for the Oposición, for the official exam. Some of you said ideas for syllabus design. Some of you said ideas to plan your didactic units, and finally AI tools and task-based learning ideas. So I've tried to put all those ingredients into the recipe, and I really hope that this talk meets your expectations and it gives you ideas that you can then put into practice, okay, in your programaciones and in the future in your career as teachers. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide, Anna. Which are, in your opinion, your weakest points when considering facing a public sector exam? You said designing didactic units. That's a biggie, isn't it? We probably don't know how to go on about it. I'll give you a few tips in a minute. Strategies to motivate students. I think that is one of the pillars of my daily job. So this presentation is jam-packed with ideas to motivate your students. So you'll take away a few of those. And finally, attention to diversity, which is essential in any classroom, especially nowadays, but even more so in the adult education classroom, because you can have a 16-year-old student working alongside an 80-year-old student, and this is true. They work at many different paces and they have different motivations. So we'll deal with that as well. Okay, so let's get started then with the next slide. That's the list of contents. The talk is going to be divided into three main parts: preparing for an oposición, course plan and teaching units. The main part of that one will be classroom ideas. And finally, very briefly, AOE versus secondary school teaching. And I've left this for the end because I see that some of you are interested in taking the AOE exams, but some of you are not. So I'm hoping that this talk can appeal to all of you, regardless of what stage of education you're thinking of applying for. Can I ask you, Anna, can you hear me okay, or do you hear background noise of traffic? Good? Okay, perfect. So let's continue. Preparing for an oposición. Let's move on to the next. So these are some tips about how to get organized. Yeah, it's such a big task that sometimes we don't know how to go about it. So let's look at the first tip, getting organized. Make a realistic calendar and stick to it. This is basic, right? Look at how much time you have, how much time it's going to take you to study every single one of your topics, and stick to it. Next. Fit in textual analysis of the scriptures daily. I'm not particularly familiar with your exam in Comunidad Valenciana, but I think that it includes something like this, right, Anna? Textual analysis and the scriptures analysis. So this is something that we may forget to include. The way I did it back in the day when I had to take my exam was to do this daily. Save half an hour for that practice. I had like a book with examples. After I finished studying and my brain was fried, I did textual analysis and descriptors every day, just for half an hour. Next, get familiar with the exam, obviously, and the assessment. Look at your assessment rubrics. Look at how you're going to be assessed, and make sure you tick all those boxes, okay? Next, be strategic, topic selection. If you don't have time to learn all the topics in your syllabus, which is extensive, be strategic. Choose topics from different parts of the syllabus, from phonetics, from literature, from teaching methodologies, so that you can, if you get a topic that you're not completely familiar with, you can draw from similar topics and you always have something to say, okay? Next, spaced repetition. This is so important. This is one of those findings from neuroscience, which has proven that spaced repetition helps with consolidating knowledge. What is this? Spaced repetition is like making a chain. So if you're studying today topic 1, and tomorrow you move on to topic 2, make sure that you revise topic 1 as well, and so on and so forth. So when you go over topic 3, revise topic 1 and 2, and topic 1, 2, 3. This is spaced repetition. In a period of time, you will build a long chain with every element that you have studied. Obviously, you will only revise synthesized versions. Like if you have your diagrams, you will only refer to those, not in so much detail. This helps immensely. Somebody's asking if this PowerPoint will be shared. Yes, I will send it to Anna, don't worry. Drill yourselves, test yourselves, get a bingo. I remember I used to have a bingo with all the numbers, all the topics, and I would just draw a little ball and say, okay, today is number 65. And I would just sit there for 2 hours or however long you've got in your exam to write it all out. Don't go into the exam if you haven't done that before at home, because it's tiring. You don't know how many pages you can write per minute or whatever, and it's a good practice to do it. It takes time, and it feels like a waste of time, but it's not. Do it at least a couple of times before the exam, I mean. Okay, next. And boost your academic English. This is crucial. When you're writing your topic and when you're reading your topic, you want to stand out from the crowd. Okay, so show your academic English. Show that you know how to use those passive voices, how to use formal vocabulary that you would use in academic English. And if you don't feel confident on that regard, start working on it. Yeah, just there are lots of websites out there that can help you with this, but that will make you stand out of the crowd, because academic English is not something that everybody has. That's something I guess that you will be working on this year, Anna, in different topics, right? Indirectly. Okay, next. So this is about getting organized. Let's have a look at the course plan and teaching units. This is like the nitty-gritty of the presentation. When you're designing your course plan, your programación, okay, make it as close to reality as possible. Okay, take into account the real calendar for that year. Count the number of sessions that you have for that year. Discount the bank holidays. Leave a couple of sessions in the event of sickness. You know, make it close to reality. Next. Refer to official EOE course plans. So have a look around at the different escuelas de idiomas in your comunidad autónoma. See how they've done it for the level that you have chosen. See what book they use and how they have organized the sessions and the units. Okay, draw inspiration from there because the people who are going to be judging you work in one of those escuelas de idiomas. So it makes sense to do that. Next. Research your panel. When you know who is going to be in your panel, see who they are, where they work, and what course plan they implement in their escuela. Because then you will have the confidence that you are doing something that is not remotely different to what they are doing in their escuela. Okay. Choose a level and a theme that speaks to you. For me, this is the most important thing. You know how people tell you, choose a high level because you can show off your language. Don't choose a low level because it's not so interesting. Choose whatever you feel confident with, a level and a theme that speaks to you. Okay, and try to make it interesting. Find like a backbone of your programación, something that will run through the programación. For example, when I did mine, I was living in London at the time, and in mine, the London Tube was the backbone. So in every unit, I chose a station of the London Tube and something that was particular of that area, and I used it to introduce my topic, something that speaks to you. Next. Engage your examiners, innovate. Think that the people who are going to be listening to you will be sitting there for many hours. They will be tired. They want to have fun. They want to look at innovative ideas. Okay? Next. Show that you know your audience. Show that you know your stuff. You know your topic. Yeah? And in the activities that you suggest. Next. Now, teaching units. I guess that's something, Anna, that you will be working with, right? How to structure the teaching units. You have to map the competences, map the objectives, map the activities, and map the assessment. And everything has to fall into place. Everything has to fit in and make sense. It feels like you are doing an impossible puzzle, but you can make it. Okay, don't despair. Bring along sample activities. It helps if you have a couple of sample activities that you can easily squeeze into any unit that you have to present. Have it laminated in color, printed in color, make it visual, yeah? And you can bring it there. For example, I remember I brought a printout version of a Kahoot quiz or a printout version of a cartoon. I really like to use cartoons in my classes. So I brought some of those along, and I can easily fit that into any teaching unit that I'm presenting. Look for the wow effect. Look for something different, something that will catch your panel off guard, that they will not have seen, okay? That will cut their attention. And integrate technology, but also traditional methods. I have seen myself drift towards traditional methods more and more lately. I'll give you a few ideas on this. Next. Sorry, I'm going to get my cat who's trying to get out of the room. There she is. Sorry, she just wants to come out and then go back in. Right, our 4 legs when we are designing the teaching units. These are my 4 legs, the pillars of everything I try to do. In the middle of it is the progression. I want my students to get to the final destination, to the objectives that we have in mind. Yes, but I don't want to lose them along the way. Because sometimes we have our objectives, we have our classroom planned, and we go like a locomotive, and we don't realize that the students are not on board. So we got to the destination, but they didn't, right? So what do we need for that? The first thing we need, and if you could move on to the next slide, Anna, the first thing we need is motivation. We need to engage our students with whatever you can. I bring chocolates to my classroom, and when it's raining, I give them chocolates. Whatever, everything goes. Sugar-free now, I do. So motivation, that's the first one. Differentiation. Differentiation is when you adapt your activities to your students' needs. So not only those that have dyslexia or dyspraxia. Hi, Beatriz. I see that you've connected your camera. Thank you very much. See, I see that we're getting newcomers. So not only the one that has dyslexia or ADHD, but in Escuela de Idiomas, the 60-year-old student who had, I don't know, a fit and they can't concentrate anymore, or they feel that they are too old compared to the young students and that they're going too slow. I have to adapt my activities on a daily basis, and this is part of my job. Otherwise, the students are not on board with me anymore. And finally, retention. We need to keep our students. Obviously, in secondary education, you don't have retention issues in terms that they don't stop coming to class, because that would be a serious issue. But if their mind leaves your classroom, then you have retention issues. You have to bring it back to the classroom. Okay, so we'll see how we do this in Escuela de Idiomas and in other environments. Okay, next one. Diverse students. I always do a needs analysis at the end. Well, you see there a camo. You would have thought that a camo that is used to the heat doesn't need an umbrella. Well, maybe there is one. Maybe you will have a student that you didn't know is going to need silence or music when they're doing activities, or, you name it. So we need to do a needs analysis. And this is where I always start at the beginning of my courses. I have a survey with questions that I ask them. You can show them on the next slide, Anna. I have a survey with questions like, what type of activities do you do outside the class to improve your English? How often do you watch audiovisual materials? Do you know how to use Google Drive? Why are you learning English? That's the most important one for me. Do you need a certificación or not? Some of them do, some of them don't, right? So this is very important. And I try to have, it says there an interview. I do a tutoria. I try to call them for tutorias throughout the first term for two reasons. One, to know a little bit more about the story, and two, for me to build up a rapport with my students. I need to have them on my side, and they need to know that I'm on their side, if you know what I mean. And all of them will come and say, oh, I have a really big problem. Okay, what is that problem? I'm really shy. I don't want to speak in front of people. And I say, okay, I'll tell you a secret. You are the 10th person who comes to tell me this secret today. All of them are scared to speak in front of their peers. And they need to know that they're not the only one, okay? But it's very important to become that figure that they can trust, okay? It's important for everything, for motivation, for engagement, and for retention. Okay, next. A few ideas on motivation. Make it fun. Make it fun no matter how old your students are. You may look at a 45 or a 50-year-old policeman who looks really tough, and then you give them one of these and he goes crazy trying to compete and be the first one to hit the buzzer. Okay, so we are all children at heart, I think, especially at 7 in the evening on a Thursday. Find interesting angles for your topics. They are sick and tired, and this goes for secondary especially. They're sick and tired of talking about holidays, about living in the countryside as opposed to the city. Be creative. Try and find angles that will speak to your 16-year-old student or to your 15-year-old student. Okay. Your 15-year-old student might want to talk about the mortgage and how expensive it is. And the 16-year-old student might want to talk about how annoying it is to share a room with their little brother. Okay, try and make it relevant to them. This is the next point. Make your tasks relevant, authentic, meaningful. This is the pillar of task-based learning. Okay, if you don't give a toss about the topic that your teacher is presenting to you, you're not going to engage. But if you are asking a relevant question, then they will do all they can to say what they think. Make them visually attractive. I think that we underestimate the importance of the visuals. It just creates something in our brain that makes us feel attracted, yeah, to what we're going to do. Play. I'll give you a few ideas about how to play. Use incentives. I already said I always have a box full of chocolates. I have a huge stash. Make your students want to be there, basically. Okay. Next. Differentiation. Right. You're going to have early finishers, the student who completes the tasks in 30 seconds, and weaker students. And normally you don't realize that the early finishers have finished because you're busy helping the weaker students. So in British secondary education classrooms, they often have like a table in the middle with lots of prepared activities. And the students are instructed to stand up and go to the middle of the table to pick up an activity as soon as they are done. And you can't imagine how proud they feel when they are the ones to stand up and go and get another activity. It shows that they got it. They are on top of everything and they can do another activity before everybody else. Of course, you need to kind of manage this carefully so that nobody feels that they're being left behind. But that is a system that you can have. I'll give you a few ideas on how to deal with early finishes and having an early finishes resource bank. Differentiate your tasks. When you're planning your tasks, think ahead. Think about ways in which that activity could be simplified and made more complex for the different groups of students that are working on it. Yeah? Use workstations. This is a really good one. You have workstations, and in one of them you do listening practice with headphones. In another one you do grammar practice. In another one vocabulary. In another one speaking. Another one reading. And they just gravitate around them. If they need more time in one station, it's fine. Everything works, okay? Be mindful of particular needs related to age and use your office hours to support your students. Okay, next. Oh, this is the explanation of the different differentiations that you can have. You can have levels of ability. So for that, a strategic group work is going to be a must. Okay, you need to know how you're going to be pairing your students. Are you going to be pairing the weaker student with the faster student? Are you going to do that all the time? Or are you going to mix it up and are you going to let the faster students to be together and go faster sometimes and the weaker ones be together and support each other, or you support them? This is something you need to think through. And there's a lot to be learned about that in cooperative learning. Trabajo cooperativo. There's very interesting literature there on the personality profiles of students and how to pair them. There are different dynamics that you can apply and use. Positive reinforcement all the time. We tend to focus on the error and not so much on the positive reinforcement. You don't know, you can't imagine how far it goes when you say in public, excellent pronunciation. Excellent pronunciation of the past tense. Well done, Maria. Or especially if it's a student that is perceived by the rest of the class as a little bit weaker. You are the queen or the king of the class, even if you don't want to be, you are, because you are the teacher. So a word of reinforcement from you is worth the world. Pool of extra activities, task variation, multisensory approach, do things that involve different senses, and then be aware of your special needs students, okay? I've got there just some ideas for dyspraxia. For example, in your programaciones, you will have to include this, okay? So those are some ideas. If somebody has dyspraxia, sit them in the front row, away from windows and distractions, allow them to use the laptop, use digital activities. I'm not going to be able to go into detail here, but if anybody needs any expansion on this, just email me and I'll send you resources. Okie dokie, next. Progression, assessment, self-assessment, peer assessment, but mainly self-assessment. I feel it helps as well. So at the end of every unit, I think it's on the next slide, Anna, I have like a self-assessment. You have there a checklist. This really helps them. Basically, I take my objectives, the objectives that were stated in your programación, and make them into can-do statements so that the student knows what they should have learned and what they should be able to do after that unit. Okay, I can understand, and we do this together. At the end of the class, we do this together. Everyone in silence just ticks, but we do this together. I can understand information about events in the past, and I look at them. I got this, revision needed. I can speak and write about past events, and I include all the things that they should know how to do. This I included back in the day in my programación, in the assessment section. Vale, a sample of this. And at the bottom of that revision list, I give them further study for all the grammar points that they should have known and where to get more help and more support if they said revision needed. They find this immensely helpful because it makes the objectives concrete. Okay, right. So I don't know how to talk about feelings. I need to revise adjectives and in an easy ing. Vale. Next. Visual assessment, I love this. Dianas de evaluación. You have some examples there in the link where you can download them. La máquina de chicles is amazing. You see that one is for primary school. He hecho deporte, he leído un libro, he visto series. But you can say, I don't know, I have revised vocabulary related to furniture, and that will be in yellow. I have used the past tense. I don't know, you customize it in whichever one you want, but it's great. And also the one on the left, you put any parameter that you want them to think about in the outside wheel, and then they need to say from the bottom 0 to the outside 3, how much do they know? For example, imagine that you put grammar, vocabulary, phonetics, listening, da, 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 da. How confident are you in these skills? Listening, they say a 1. Reading, they say a 3. Speaking, they say a 2. And they will see that the what is that called? The web that they will get is not going to be symmetrical. It's going to be tilted to one side, and that will visually show them where they need to work. Yeah, I love these. It's very useful. Okay, next. Retention. It's in the Escuela de Idiomas, and I think in any classroom, but particularly in Escuela de Idiomas, it's very important to create a sense of group. That's going to be the safety net, let's see, the glue that will keep your students in the classroom when problems arise, when difficulties come, okay, because they feel that they're part of a group and that they have to come back to it, okay? So what do? I try to build that one-to-one rapport with my students, and I try to get them to know each other and to care about each other. I keep track of them. I'm a pain in the neck, especially between September and December. If I see somebody who's not come for 3 classes, I send them a friendly email. I just say, hi, we're missing you. I hope everything's okay. I guess that you will have a lot of work. We're looking forward to having you back in class. If you need a tutoria to go over what you missed, let me know. And you would be surprised how many of them reply and say, actually, it's been really tough. I would really appreciate a tutoria. Thank you for your concern. You know, you are caring about them and you fish them back. I've fished back so many students. After January is more difficult because a lot of time has gone by. Make it easy for them to catch up. So I use my tutorials for that. I fish them and say, okay, come back here. This is what you need to know. Use your aula virtual. If you have an aula virtual, use it wisely so that they can quickly access the materials they need. Keep tabs on the students' progress and beat the gloomy weather, the weather for us. The weather is always a problem. In winter, because it rains, and in summer, because it's sunny, and they want to be on the beach. So you have to beat the weather. More interesting than the beach and the storms. Okay, next. Okay, this is what I wanted to get to. So this is, I think, the part that will be most interesting for you. I have summarized my top 10 classroom activities there. You see that I've grouped them in different categories: dress for success, make it real, crowd pleases, AI wonders. So what I would like you to do is to look at those 10 categories and tell me on the chat which one you want me to explain. So the first one to tell me a number, I will go to that. Don't be shy. Number 2. Okay, Anna, so if you can take us to make it real. So make it real. This ties in with the motivation issues. Make it real and make it interesting. Imagine that I come to class with this dry slide and I say, describe your flat or your house using the vocabulary that you have just learned. And there are. You need to write 100 words. Rate how bored you are on a scale from 0 to 10. You don't need to answer. I imagine the answers. Now, 10, Beatriz is saying, thank you. I would be bored too. This is the point. I do it for my students, but I also do it for myself. I don't want to be bored in my classes, right? Somebody said, Anna, you said 11. Totally agree. Okay, next slide. Compare it with this. Hi, my name is Haley, and I'm looking for a house or a flat swap in Melchor for this summer. I live in a lovely 3-bedroom house in the outskirts of Sydney. It has a cozy open-plan kitchen with a living area, 2 bathrooms upstairs, and a toilet downstairs, and a small garden, blah, 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 blah. If you're interested, please get in touch ASAP. And if I have had time and my friend Haley is not sick and tired of me asking her for things, I will ask her to record a brief video from Sydney that I will play to my students, and that will make her real. So if you have any native English speaking friends, use them and then bribe them so that you don't lose their friendship forever. But bring them into your class like that. It makes it real. All of a sudden, they're doing an activity that assimilates to real life, and that makes them motivated. Another example on the next slide. We're moving to London. Your employer has decided to send you to London to take a 3-month intensive English course and has offered to pay for your family to come along with you if necessary. All you need to do is tell them what part of the city you would like to stay in. Are you ready? So we would look into the details. We would plan, who do you want to go with? Okay, a group of 5, a group of 2. Do you want to share a house? Do you want to live in a B&B? You know, it makes it real. Next. What activities can we do in Melchor? Melchor is the area where we live. And we have 3 main towns, Bayona, Nigran, and, oh Jesus, Gondomar. I forgot for a second there. So for me, I've got people from all those towns in my class, and there's a little bit of rivalry. So I use that all the time. And I say, my friend Jim has just moved to Melchor, and this is a real friend of mine called Jim who has just moved to Melchor from the UK. He loves outdoor activities and he would like to know what he can do here and if you like to join him in any of them. So the Gondomar people will work together and will suggest the activities that he can do in Gondomar. The Nigran people will do the same, so on and so forth. So if you go to the next slide, I asked him to record a message for Jim. And I use these little gadgets. These are actually used for dog training, believe it or not. This is a little buzzer that records. It's not going to work properly because I think it's out of battery, but basically you can push a button that it has at the back and record. Hi, I'm going to record a message. Now it's not going to work, but I push this button and I should be able to hear it. No, I can't hear it. Oh, yeah.
Hello, this is my answer.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard it or not. You can only record 1 minute with this, so it's got to be something short. But it's, it's something jazzy, something different, and they like it. So you record your messages and then you send them to your friend Jim. And you ask Jim to tell your students where are you going to go and live and what activities you're going to do in Gondomar, Nigran, or Bayona. And it just changes the activity. Okay, so there's a few ideas for you to make it real. Okay, let's go back to the main slide, Anna. There we go. Another number, guys. Where do you want me to go next? 7. Curiosity killed the cat and it killed you as well, Elena. Okay. I love using surveys to start a topic. So imagine that I have to talk about housing, right? I like using surveys like this one, and I say, okay, these are Londoners' top 5 priorities when choosing where to live. You can see there, the first one is 71%, and the last one is 34%. Please tell me what you think. Guys, tell me on the chat, what do you think are the top 5 priorities? What do you think is the one for 71%? Come on, people, tell me.
Proximity to public transport.
For example, thank you, Beatriz. You can write on the chat as well, guys. Proximity. So you think that one is 71%, yeah? What do you think is going to be 59%, guys? Oh, you're shy this morning. Space. Yeah, how big your room is. Neighborhood, if it's a safe neighborhood. Thank you, guys. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide to discover. So they would talk about this for 5 minutes in their groups, and then we would discover 71% is good transport links indeed. 59% close to work study, 45% good amenities, etc., etc. Okay, so all of a sudden, you have transformed your classroom. You have gone from, okay, today we're going to talk about housing, and they don't give a toss about that, and they start thinking about the shopping list. You have transformed that into, okay, now I want to discover it. I want to be the one who gets the right answer. Let me think about it. And then when you show them the answer, they care about it because they want to know if they were right. Okay, so you've clicked something in their brains, you've brought them, you've engaged them. Okay, so I use this type of activity a lot. Next. Anna was distracted. I also use this kind of activity with a YouTube video. We're not going to be able to play this one, but you get the idea. I get a video like this one. This one is silent, and it just shows you the story of that guy who's going up the stairs. It shows something curious, something that you don't know what's going to happen. He's just waiting for a train, and all of a sudden he sees a girl on the other side of the platform, and they start making eye contact. And all of a sudden there's a note that flies onto the other side of the platform, and she catches it, and she's going to open it. And I stop the video at that time, right? And you could do it in two different ways. You could either stop the video in different points and get them to discuss what's going to come next, or what I prefer is to send half of the classroom out so that only half of the students see the beginning of the video, and then switch and send the half that watched the beginning of the video out and send the other half back in. So that afterwards, they will have to do an information gap fill, if you like. They will have to tell each other what happened in the story, and they want to know how it ended. Again, you're creating authentic interest. Yeah, so you can do this with a million videos, short films. I use short films a lot to do this kind of activity. Vale. And the sending them out of the room is great because, you know, it gives them a breather, they move. When I send them out of the room, I may send them out with a game that they can play with in the meantime. And then they have a real need to talk to each other. Next. What's the story behind the pictures? Oh, I did this one recently. You get famous pictures, and they have to imagine what is the real story behind them. And you will find that the youngest students don't even know who the Beatles are. I don't know if how old or young you guys are listening to me, but I hope that you know the Beatles. And sometimes I give them like 3 keywords that they need to fit into their story, right? So in the first one, for example, I will tell them they need to fit in the word dentist, girlfriend, and celebrate. And they make this crazy idea rap about the girl being a dentist and being the Marine's girlfriend and celebrating Victory Day after Second World War. And then we will learn that this girl was actually a random. They didn't know each other. And the guy was with his real girlfriend there. She was watching him kiss another girl. So, you know, just interesting stories that they can work with. Next. This one works really well with prepositions. You project this photo or of any other photo of a room in a house. You give them the prepositions that they can use. And if you think that they can't remember the vocabulary, you give them the vocabulary as well. You get the students in pairs. One of them is facing the blackboard, well, the projector, and the other one is facing the wall. So they can't see it. They need to draw the room. It's great. They just get so frustrated. And the one who's looking at the projector, they really need to do their best to explain, okay, this is a sofa and it's to the right of the lamp. How do you say lámpara de pie? Oh my God, I don't know. And the rug, is the rug on the floor or in the floor? You know, it creates all sorts of questions so that they can use their prepositions meaningfully. And the other one has to understand. And then they swap with a different photo. Okay? Just an idea there. Next. We go back to the main slide. Sorry, Anna. Mira, in the link, back to main slide. Click back to main slide. On the little arrow. It doesn't matter. Yeah, there. Slide 33. You see it there at the bottom? Slide 33? There you go. Okay, next number. Where do you want me to go next? 9. Jazz it up. Okay, we jazz it up with music. We need music in our lives. You know, I heard a presentation in a conference recently that was presenting a study saying that when doing grammar activities, students benefited from listening to Bach. You know, Johann Sebastian Bach. So sometimes I play classical music, but sometimes I just play acoustic music just to break the silence and make it feel a bit more homey and like we're not in class. Okay, I use music. I'm creating, actually, I haven't finished creating this. All-time music artists. I just choose some from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and I've got songs ready to be used. I have printed my lyrics with the gaps, and I have the copies ready to give them when I feel that I have 5 spare minutes or there is a day for music. I just use it like that. And it works really well with younger students because they only know reggaeton and modern music, and it feels like it's a part of music culture. Okay, next. I try and bring in creative resources that I find online. I really like this one. You can print it out for yourselves if you want. This is the London Tube map turned into a connectors diagram. So if you can see, the lines are named after the different functions that the connectors can have in your writing. So contrasting line, the comparing line, the adding line. And I have it printed and laminated in my classroom. And sometimes I will just cover all the connectors or a few connectors on each of the lines. And I laminate the actual connectors. I use Velcro a lot. And I get them to stick it on the right place, on the right line. You know, for example, I say, however, okay, stick it on the right line. It's going to go on the contrasting line, etc. Okay, you can go back to the main slide, Anna, if you click on the green arrow at the bottom, you see? There you go. Okay, where do you want me to go next? 6. Anna, do I have only 10 minutes or can I go over? 10 minutes only. Okay, so this is the last one we're going to look at, and then you can look at the rest at home. 6. So we go to a work and no play. Okay, this is the games. You can find loads of games on Genially, already made, or you can customize them. Okay, this is a snakes and ladder. You can play on the screen. You will use the dice, the virtual dice there, and you can take your little guy there to the right square, and you get a question. In this one, you get a question about the past tense, but it could be about anything. You can customize it. Next. English quiz. This is, again, a roulette from Genially. You can put anything you want in that roulette. And there's also another one in Word Wall. Do you know Word Wall? I'm going to write it on the chat. Yes, some of you do. It's amazing. I use it every day. Word Wall. Okay, next. This is Word Wall. So that's an example. Basically, in Word Wall, you can create contents and you can present them in 20 different ways. You can present them as a roulette. You can present it as a hangman. You can present it as a contest, as a multiple choice. So it's super useful. And you have lots of resources that are already created. Next. Kahoot. Do you know Kahoot? Yes. Okay, that's an essential. To revise my contents at the end of every unit, I do a Kahoot and they absolutely love it. Next. Crosswords. I will bring in crosswords sometimes. Again, that one is from WordBall, just to revise vocabulary or irregular verbs. Next. Oh, this is wonderful. Follow this guy on Instagram. His name is Mark Hancock Pronunciation. He also has 3 or 4 books with games for phonetics. Wonderful. That game, for example, is just an example. In that game, you have to go from the top to the bottom, going only through verbs that are pronounced or that have a es and are pronounced es. So for example, if you start at the beginning, talk, talks, no. Count, count, no. Teach, teaches. Yeah, so we start there in teaches. Now let's make our way down. Where do we go, guys? Walks, no. Count, no. Where do we go? What? Well, watch is going to be physically next to the square, vale? So it would be washes, right? So you go from top to bottom, and it's got on the next slide, I think I've got the one on ED. Yeah, you have to go from ED to the bottom ED, going through verbs that are pronounced like T. It's got millions of these. So I've got these laminated in my room, and I use them when I teach these things in class. Next. Word jar. Oh, this is wonderful. I don't have a jar here with me, but I basically get like a glass jar, and I ask the students to put in a new word that they've learned in that session. I only do it in one unit, for example, unit 4. Okay, in this unit, we're going to fill this jar. We're going to put in a little piece of paper with a new word that you have learned. And at the end of the unit, we're going to shake it up and bring words out so that we can check if we remember them. Okay. Right, let me see. Go to back to the main slide, Anna. And take me to BCBs, number 10. BCBs. Back to BCBs, yeah. BCBs, this is relating to the early finishers. So I'm going to show you things that I've got in my resources bank that I have already prepared. I use these. Do you see it? This is like a clear pouch, a clear folder. And it's actually a whiteboard. So I have activities that I want to have ready to be used, but I don't want to be making photocopies because I don't want to worry about that. So I have a few with prepositions, a few with vocabulary, a few with grammar, whatever. And I have them ready for my early finishers. So if somebody's finished too soon, I give them one of these and I get them to do the exercise. You use your whiteboard marker. You write on it. Imagine they have to match the words with the drawings. They do it like that. And when they're finished, I can just erase it easily. And I can use it for the next time. Vale, this is super cheap and you can have a few of these. Next, what else do I have for my early finishes? I have this little book called Minute Mysteries. This is for kids, for English kids, but it works so well. So you've got a story that is super short. It got like 3 pages and it's a mystery. And at the end, it gives you a question. And this one is, why was Mr. Smith justified in dismissing the dragon's case? And you have to think about it. So 2 people will discuss, oh, I think it's because he came home late and then he was the one who, whatever. And then you've got the solution there. So I've got a few of these photocopied and laminated and ready to be used. It gives them some reading practice in like 3 minutes, and it gives them a discussion topic that they engage with. More ideas. I highly recommend this book. Board Games. This is the beginner's book, but you also have the advanced or intermediate, which is green. Okay. This has loads of games. Let me see if I can show you one. Show you this one. So for example, it's got like board games like this for English. This one is called Have You Ever Kissed a Frog? It's to practice the present perfect. So you take a dice, depending on what number you get, you will fall on one different square, and you have to say, imagine you fall on number 8 or number 9. Do yoga. Have you ever done yoga? And they have to talk. But you've got everything. You've got with prepositions, millions of them. So again, I've got them photocopied in color, laminated, and ready to be used in my class. What else? Other ideas for making the class dynamic, and I'm very aware that I only have 3 minutes, but I just want to show you this. I've got these guys. I use them every day. Well, not every day, because then they lose their effect, but every week, right? I give one of these to each group. I make a quiz, and whoever hits the bell faster is the one that takes the turn, and then we count points. You've got an educational version of this by Anaya. Se llaman, they're called pulsadores. You can find them. And they have different noises. I can't take this to the Escuela Idiomas because it's like, Nino, Nino, Nino. Wow, wow. No, too childish. But for secondary school, it's fun. Next thing I absolutely need in my classes, little whiteboards, vale, little whiteboards for the groups to give their answer, vale, or to write down the answers to an activity that I've got on a screen. What else do I have in my goodies bag? Dados, Tiger, you know Tiger, some advertising here. They've got this activity dice. Each dice has a different object. Some of them have verbs. You've got this one as well. It's for storytelling. So you draft the bones, the bare bones of a story, and you leave gaps. And in one of those gaps, they will have to throw a dice and fill in the gap, and they will come up with the most crazy stories. And the last thing I want to show you, well, I always have a dice with me. This wheel that I discovered yesterday. I take a lot of inspiration from primary schools, from my kids' teachers, actually. So you've got a wheel. I don't know if you can see. Can you see what's written on it? No. Well, imagine you've got a wheel with different things. I've written prepositions, ¿vale? So imagine that I have sentences on the board and they are missing a preposition. They have this wheel and they have a peg. Yeah? So they have to mark the answer. If the answer is 2, they will put the peg on 2. They have to mark the answer with the peg. You know, it's just silly things. As I'm saying, I'm going more analogic lately than digital. And I think, Anna, could you move forward to see if I have anything pressing that I want to finish with? I didn't tell you what the differences are between my students and secondary school students, but those are the pros for me. It's very structured teaching in the Escuela Idiomas. It's highly specialized. I can teach higher levels. Don't be afraid of teaching higher levels. Some of you said in the survey that you don't want to become AOE teachers because the level is higher. Don't be afraid. Just work hard on your English and you will be fine. Plus, if it makes you feel better, there are very few C2 classes. The chances are that you're going to be teaching B1, B2. Those are some of the most numerous groups. Don't be scared. They are adults. Some of you said that you were scared of adults, teaching adults because they may be disrespectful. The complete opposite. I'm scared of teaching teenagers. They may be disrespectful, but adults will be fine. They're lovely. They will not want to make you feel uncomfortable. Next slide. Challenges, diverse groups, diverse goals, student retention, work-life balance, because we teach in the evenings mostly. So we talked about most of those. Next, Anna, course structure. Well, that's how the AOE courses work. I'm not going to go into that. Next. workload and typical schedule. We normally have 18 hours a week of teaching time. We normally have 4 groups of students and 2 levels. So this year, for example, I'm teaching just 1 level, actually. I'm teaching B1, both in face-to-face mode and in semi-presencial, which is something new that the Escuelas de Idiomas are developing, where they come to class 1 day, and the other day they complete activities at home in a platform that has been specifically created by AOE teachers for them. It's challenging because you need to keep tabs on them and you need to make sure that they get to the same point at the end of the year. We also have coordination meetings, school meetings, exam design duties. We have to design our exams, not the exams that we're going to give our students, but they go to a bank of resources. I don't know if in the Comunidad Valenciana it works in the same way. And we have optional training activities that we can take part in. So most of the days I work in the evenings and I prepare my classes in the morning, afternoons. But I also have a few afternoons off. So, you know, that's how it works. And I think that's the last slide, isn't it, Anna? Yeah, so that's about it. I'm sorry I've gone so fast. I hope that I have given you a few ideas that you can use. I'm sorry I haven't really spoken this year, Anna, much about the profile of the AOE students, but I think that you can imagine what the main differences are. And if anybody has any questions, and we don't have any more time because I understand we don't have any time for questions, right, Anna?
Well, you can have a few minutes for questions while I get the next speaker to log in into the right place, because apparently he's on his own. So I'm trying to see, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to see where we have lost Fabiano.
Okay, so guys, feel free, shoot away. Do you have any questions, either by chat or speaking? Don't be shy. No questions? It has been really useful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Estela. I wish you all the best. Thank you, Elena. I really wish you...
Don't you also have a playlist for the course? Sorry, a Spotify playlist on this course?
I don't. I end up going into YouTube.
No, I'm asking the students because I think they also have one, right? Don't you? Okay, what other things had you done before and what new things that you didn't know did you learn? Well, probably lots of things, right, that we learned today.
No questions.
Also,
comment on something.
I just want to say, is it all right? I really like Tiger is your best ally. When I've worked with kids, I have fly swatters. They absolutely love using fly swatters in the classroom.
What is that?
A fly swatter, this. I don't know if you can see it, but I have 3 of them and I use them all the time with the little ones. They absolutely love it, like to practice vocabulary on the slide. That's so good. And then from Tiger, the Jenga game.
What do you do with those? Sorry, I didn't get what you do with those.
So basically you have a PowerPoint. You've seen vocabulary, all right? It's especially for the little ones. And in the vocabulary, you have the pictures for the vocab. And then I always divide the board in 2. And the pictures are the same, but obviously different orders. So there's team 1 and team 2. And then 2 representatives come out to the board. And then people from the other team have to shout out a word. And they have to smash it on the board.
I love it.
And the first one will get a point. So kids absolutely love it. And then I've used the Jenga from Tiger as well. It's so good because it's color coded. So you can use it for revision and speaking. So you can label your questions by difficulty, because I think it's green, yellow, and red. So depending on what Jenga piece they've taken out, if it's green, they can choose a green question, which is a simple question. If it's red, they have to use a red one. And the good thing is because it's unpredictable, you don't know which one you can really get. So it's really good. So just that to say.
Thank you. That's brilliant.
Bea, I hope your team includes some of these ideas in your learning situation.
We'll see.
You might need to negotiate it with your teammates.
Super
Okay,
creative.
I'm
And
going to stop here and say, well, Sabela, finish what you have to say because I see Professor Fabiano is already in.
no, I was just going to say that those fly thingies, you can use them just to stick an answer on them and you lift it up. Super versatile.
Yeah, yeah, so
Anyway,
true.
thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure. I hope that you found it useful, and I wish you all the best in your exams and this year.